Hello, friends. First, I want to thank Seminary for inviting me to lead this keynote. It is a weird format, I have to admit, to deliver a keynote virtually. So I am doing this by 2 videos. During this keynote, first I'm going to tell you a story that led down a path of me re-envisioning teaching and learning, which eventually led to me teaching online. The second part of this talk, I want to highlight some community members and examples from within our community of successful transition to distance learning. And then I want to frame the professional development experience. So I'm going to tell you a story about a student. I'm going to call this student Wilson. And this student has long since graduated from Seminary, graduated college, and I will protect his identity by calling him Wilson. So Wilson was in one of my classes, one of my science classes, and he struggled. He really had a tough time with the content. And I spoke to his mom about the struggle, and the feedback that I received was that Wilson felt that I didn't call on him enough during class, and that meant that he had fewer opportunities to sort of practice his thinking and to get feedback. And I was, surprised by this feedback, but, I said I would address it. So I made a concerted effort to pick on this student. And then maybe a few months later, I got the same feedback. It was still struggling. And I said, that doesn't seem right. I know I've been picking on this student. And I said, well, let me start collecting data about students and me calling on them and them participating in class. I just want to say that I'm talking about direct instruction days. This feedback was focused on the days in which I was presenting content and students were asking questions and I was helping students think through the content. This feedback was not about lab days or discussion days. Wilson reported that it was really about when I was sort of at the front of the room with a PowerPoint presentation and delivering content. So on those days, I started keeping data. Keep track of all the students that spoke in all my classes, sort of a running tally. I even enlisted some help from some of my students. And as I analyzed the data, I saw that, that I was, really all students were participating almost at an equal rate. But the data was actually surprising. I was disappointed. At first I was encouraged that, all students, I was picking on them, at an equal rate. But when I looked at these direct instruction days, I was sort of struck that students were speaking, between 3 or 5 times a day during those presentation days. And it struck me that this is back when we had 45-minute periods, that, if a student is speaking 4 or 5 times, that is, speaking every 9 minutes or so. And that didn't seem right to me. That didn't settle right with me. After that situation with Wilson, it really caused me to think and reflect deeply. And the question that kept on nagging at me was, what's the best use of my face-to-face time with students? I started to think that maybe direct instruction and standing in the front of the room, presenting PowerPoint presentation, probably wasn't the best use of my class time. And that led me to make a number of changes, one of which was offloading the direct instruction outside of that face-to-face time. And I moved it to the asynchronous time, to the private space. And then I started focusing on the community space and how can I leverage the community space for the most interaction. So that were the class discussions, the labs, and other activities. And this is a question I think we're all going to have to wrestle with now. As we think to the fall and we don't know what the fall is going to look like. Are we going to be on campus? Are we going to be off campus? Are we going to be on campus some days and not other days? Some weeks and not other weeks? Whatever the motto is going to be, the one thing I think we're going to have to be sure of is that our face-to-face time, whether that's in person or whether that's on Zoom or some other video conference, that those are going to be precious minutes and precious hours. And we really need to think about what's the best use of that precious time. and what can be offloaded to the asynchronous time, to the private time. And so whether it's community building and discussions and different types of assessments and different ways of engaging students, that's going to be, I believe, the most important question that you're going to have to wrestle with. So we're hoping in this professional development series that's organized by 3 strands. The first strand are pedagogies that pivot. Second strand, building your skills. And then the third strand is taking care. Is as you're going through these professional development experiences, I want you to think about that question. What's the best use of my synchronous face-to-face time?